am thrilled to finally get Dulquer Salmaan today on Filme Shilmy. And I'm speaking with you after about 3 years. I think the last time we spoke was on the phone for Zoya Factor, which was like many moons
Yeah,
ago
yeah,
now.
19, I think.
Yeah, which was such a
18 or
long
19,
time
yeah, can't
ago.
remember.
So Dulquer, it's so
Yeah.
wonderful to have you. This is our first video interview, and a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Anush. Thanks for having me. And you've always been super kind and always stayed in touch and
No,
try to put these interviews together. And I'm always like waiting for the right film to talk about. Uh, but yeah, so that was a good time, I think.
absolutely. Well, look, a huge congratulations on Sita Ramam. It has
Thank you,
emerged
thank you.
as another hit this month, alongside I think what Bimbi Sara and Kartikeya too. And this is your
Right.
obviously the second Telugu movie. So tell me,
Yeah.
Dulquer, what significance does the success of this film and the character Ram hold for you at this current stage of your career in life?
I mean, I don't think I expected it to be as big as it is. I didn't know what to make of it because even when they brought the script to me, I was like, I always have this doubt. I'm like, you have Telugu actors who probably have a bigger market than me, will command a bigger opening. But also at the same time, when I heard the script, it really excited me because it's something I felt sounds really classic. It sounds like an epic love story, which the story needs to be told. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'm really lucky to get this offer. Let's not overthink it. And I jumped on board, and it kept growing every day, even as we were shooting it. As every new cast member stepped into the film, it just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Hmm.
And but even then, I was really actually apprehensive because I feel like love stories as just a genre doesn't seem to have takers in theaters. Like people are just like, okay, if it's a love story, I'll watch it, on OTT or at my convenience or when I feel like it. It's not something that people really like come together in big numbers to the cinemas. So
Yeah.
I was really apprehensive, like leading up to release. I was like, you know, I don't know if love stories work anymore, and so there's so many things playing in my mind. But I guess when we try to predict what the audience wants when we mess up, we should just be true to the story and true to the film and believe in that and trust that process.
Absolutely well said, and I'm glad you did. In fact, a lot of the reviews, I mean, in fact, when I watched the movie, I think I had told you this as well that it really reminded me of films like Roja and Veer Zara. Like it brought back that essence of, the never say die spirit of love, and how even over
Yeah.
long distance, the love survives. I think it also seems to have reinstalled our faith in Indian love stories. So I know I'm kind of throwing you a bit under the bus here, but why do you feel that this essence of almost a spiritual romance has kind of been lacking in our movies of recent?
I mean, I also think the language of love has changed, in ever since just digital and technology and from the time we've had smartphones. I feel like when I was in school or college, you see a pretty girl, you don't figure out how to find out who she is or find out what her name is. Or there's such a big process attached to it. Now it's you can see her at a cafe or restaurant or wherever, and maybe just hashtag search that particular restaurant, and maybe if she's tagged herself, you find there's no uh, real sort of mystique or intrigue left. It's just so easy now to find people, even if you're interested in someone. So I feel like this era of sort of not seeing somebody and writing anonymous letters to each other, like this story could only be told in period. So
Right.
I feel like so now when we represent today's love stories, the stories we tell are very current, and so you can't have this classic romance attached to a modern love story. I feel like.
Right, right. And I think what I also appreciate about the film is how the movie is very human in essence. I think whether it deals with the conflict between two countries, communal rifts, or even the portrayal of the Indian army,
Yeah.
I think everything was portrayed with such dignity and such respect, and I really appreciated that aspect about Sita Ramam. But I think how important has it been for you and the filmmakers to ensure that this is actually done with utmost sensitivity and maturity?
I from the time Hanu narrated it to me and just how he thinks and what he's trying to communicate, and is always about, humanity always wins over everything else, and no matter where, there's always one good person that you can find, irrespective of war or between countries or communities or whatever it is. We all have our differences for sure, but humanity always triumphs, and I love that was his notion, and that's how he wanted to tell the story. And a lot of the times when we're making films, like sometimes I might be more informed or more sensitive to some of these issues of what I feel like might uh, lead to some kind of backlash or some kind of reaction, or if it's not politically correct. But with Hanu, I feel like I didn't have to reason anything with him. I feel like his thinking was already so pure, like his intentions were so like righteous.
Mm.
So I don't think there's any moment on set, like any scene we were doing, where I felt like, this is not gonna connect with the audience. And it's so true what he wants to do, and I feel like he's that kind of writer, that's the kind of literature he consumes, and he believes what he's saying in his film.
Right, right. Now, you're also a producer. You've emerged as a producer, and I believe you distributed what Sita Ramam, I think, under your banner, in
In Kerala, yes.
in Kerala.
Yeah.
So now that you're sort of backing movies, I mean, how much do uh box office numbers actually concern you? And I think before the pandemic, there was always that whole I don't want to say pressure, but there was, I guess, somewhat of a motivational force of, a movie crossing the 100 crore club.
Mm.
Do you think that's relevant now? I mean, how relevant is that? Because I feel like the box
I've
office system has changed completely after pandemic.
I mean, this is just my personal thought. I've always been slightly against this whole chasing these numbers, uh, uh, sort of belief system that we seem to have in India, and only if it reaches 100 crores, it's a certified hit or certified super hit or blockbuster or whatever. A lot of the times, if you're looking at your return on income, return on your investment, it doesn't have to hit 100 crores. You can make a film for 98 crores and just make 2 crores on it, or it can be a 150 crore film that did 100 crores. But the people's perception seems to be that, oh, if it's hit 100 crores, therefore it's a hit. And then everybody starts to kind of plan and kind of tailor films to hit these numbers, and I think that's where the art gets affected. So I've never been that person to chase these numbers. I'm smart enough to make sure my films turn a profit. I get that. I get what it costs to make. I get what our pre-business is going to be. I get what our theatrical risk is, and I can make sure all of that is safe and nobody loses money on my films. But I've always fought and kind of like tried to stay away from chasing this big blockbuster, because I feel like that's when you mess up. You try and tell true original stories, and you can package it, you can make it and like commercial, cast it well, you get good music. All this I understand, but I've never been one to chase that. I feel like every time people start pitting actors and producers against each other, saying, "Hey, your film did only this much, and that film's done 100 crores. This actor still doesn't have a 100 crore film, therefore he's not a successful." It makes no sense to me. I feel like it then messes with everybody's judgment, and we start doing maybe bad films. You start doing films with just some amount of commercial content, but like maybe no straight storyline. It can just be a bunch of scenes strung together. It can just be a bunch of sequences strung together. You do all of this because you think, hey, it's going to be commercially viable, and it'll do 100 crores. So I feel like the moment that discussion stops, but I don't think it will, because also like cinema is not like sport, and
Mhm.
people want to like pick their sides and pick their teams and pit each other against each other. So that's always going to happen. But I think the best films come out when they were not chasing a particular number.
Right. And I think one thing I must tell you, I mean, just aside from that, and I think moving on a bit from Sita Ramam, which I think you and Mrunal were fantastic in, by the way, so amazing
Thank you.
performances. I think it's probably one of my favorite performances of Mrunal, and of course yours as well. There has been a paradigm shift where Indian cinema has become one entity now, which is great.
Yeah.
We're judging Indian cinema for Indian cinema, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's a great movement that I think, should have happened a long time ago, to be quite frank. But what do you feel has contributed towards this sudden awakening to South Indian content?
So it's funny. I feel like even the satellite kind of opened up uh, our films across regions because very early in my career, like maybe as way back as 2012, I've shot in the Northeast. I did this whole motorcycle ride film where I shot across 7 states. And there on their local cable networks, local like satellite channels, like I would see so many South films like dubbed into Hindi or whatever regional languages up north. It could be Telugu films, it could be Malayalam, it could be Tamil, and they were then suddenly catered to the local audience, and it was really loved, and one second. It was really loved, and it was sorry. I have my 5-year-old is running around,
Okay.
and you see a lot of traction, with those audiences there. So I feel like there was always a certain awareness, but maybe it wasn't consolidated. And I think the big tentpole films, that Mr. Rajmouli has made, like Bahubali and stuff, kind of then, and they took that risk. They took the risk of showing it to distributors in Hindi and being like, we're attempting the biggest film in India. That really pushed things. KGF really pushed things, and then OTT really just broke people up. And I
Right.
feel like now it's become consolidated. I think what has always been happening in different pockets, consumption that was happening in different pockets all over the country, is now consolidated, and there are conversations that are happening which is visible to everybody, and it's also reflecting in viewership and footfalls to theaters. So I think it's been sort of a long time coming, but it's all coming together now.
Right, right. And I think one thing I must say, and I've noticed this as well, that often Indian films, which perhaps are not in the Hindi language, have always kind of uh, embraced their identity and have been very quite creatively brave. That's one thing that I have also always noticed. Like I watched that new Dhanush movie, and it was amazing how literally it really was human in essence, and it brought to life that whole sense of the surroundings that that the people have grown up in, or even the relationships that they may have encountered. So I think having grown up in this industry with your father Mammootty, who's obviously a huge superstar, um how have you adapted to this industry and the sort of styles or stories emerging over the years?
So I've always believed, you know, film. It's a fact. The films are so representative of the times we live in, right?
Yeah.
So when I got into films as a 20-something-year-old, uh, I didn't try to kind of do what my dad's done or suddenly pitch myself or attempt to become this star or something like what would probably be expected of a second generation actor. Like it's almost like we're entitled to become stars or something. Like we have this certain fan following that we've inherited. Um, I just generally I was like I want to tell the stories of somebody of my age, which is relevant and current in the parts where these stories are set. It could be uh, somebody growing up in Kochi or Chennai or Bangalore, whatever it is, or big cities or small towns. So I kept trying to tell those stories. I kept trying to find things I relate to or I identify with, and I think that has helped me. Which is why now I think like as I'm getting older, I want to kind of shift a little bit in the kind of characters I'm playing.
Hmm.
Um, but I never. I think it was very important for me to steer clear of my father's identity. I think we also helps. I don't look like him, and we have different personalities,
Yeah.
and also to find my own type of cinema or my cinema basically. I think
Right.
now with just my filmography, people identify a certain kind of cinema with me, or they expect a certain kind of quality from me, or like which I fought quite hard to to get. There was always so much of inquiries and demands from so many filmmakers to do really commercial movies and try to become the star. And I was like, no, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to like tell these stories, but somehow not seeking that, I think I've found this niche for myself where I'm working across industries and I'm getting so much love.
Right. I think one thing that I must also, an observation that I found is that even though, see, the star system is still very much rampant, and I personally love the big superstars and watching the big superstars on screen
Same,
because
same.
that is what drew me to this industry in the first place. But I think what I really love, and I think what even Hindi cinema also gets right at times as well, is the fact that we see a balance of good content with
Hmm?
superstardom. And I think that's one thing that I think South has definitely mastered. In fact, I wanted to just talk a bit more about, how you said you wanted to do a very different side, a different sort of trajectory to what your dad has done, of course. And I think when we talk about romance and love stories, I mean, you've had your hand at working with some wonderful directors. I mean, whether it's for a film like Charlie or whether, of course, working with Mani Ratnam in O Kadal Kanmani, you've obviously
Yeah.
had very different sort of ideologies of romance, I think, when it comes to the big screen experience. So I guess when you kind of had that, how does that sort of seep into your mindset? I guess when you're doing a film like Sita Ramam, how much of a reference point actually does that become?
I also think there's a certain time and phase and age in your career when you are considered for roles of a romantic hero or kind of exploring that one aspect of our lives, and it's I mean it's definitely the most common running theme in everybody's lives. Everyone is looking for love. Everybody is seeking it in some level. It could be from a partner, it could be love from family or whatever. So I feel like so I kind of recognize that quite early. I was like, okay, there is this uh, in the amount of time that I've been in the industry. I'm a certain age. I fit certain roles, so I am going to be offered love stories and. But obviously, I was also keen to do stuff that would really resonate. That is telling some kind of deeper story. I love that OK Company was about a young couple living together, juxtaposed with this older couple that's in the same house.
Yeah.
Uh, or like a Charlie is this vagabond free spirit, and but there's this love track that's going on. And Sita Ramam is like this classic epic love story. But Mahanati, it's essentially a love story, but it's a conflicted, convoluted kind of love story. But the love is always there. I mean, the man probably has commitment issues, but I don't think he ever disagreed from the one fact that she was probably his true love. So
Mhm.
I love that I get to explore all of these. Um,
Right.
because in real life um, when you're young, you have relationships, or maybe those don't go anywhere, and then you find the girl you end up marrying, and you have that life. But a lot of it is it's probably not cinematic. It's probably quite straightforward.
Right.
So it's lovely that I get to tell these stories and these kind of situations, and somehow like so I also maybe want to experience that as an actor, or through these or live vicariously through these characters.
Hmm.
So I genuinely enjoy it. I've had a great time. Though I do now feel like now I want to take a break from it. But it's definitely a huge part of my career. I think this love that I've received from the audiences has a lot to do with these romantic films that I've done.
Yeah, definitely. I think, to be very honest, I think one of my first instances of falling in love with you was actually through O Karal Karmani. So I think that was the
Yeah.
icebreaker, I think, for me.
I think that
Um,
film opened me up to a lot of audiences because everybody
yeah,
watches the Money Serve film.
of course.
All of India has always watched the Money Serve film.
And he's a pioneer in showing like multi-dimensional relationships, not just romance, but layered relationships and layered kind
And
of.
very beautiful, like
Yeah.
simple conversations. I love that about
Honestly, I could
it.
write a dissertation on how amazing of a filmmaker he really is. He's one of my
Yeah,
favorites too. So I
and
totally resonate.
it's a dream to mouth dialogues written by him because it's so relatable. It's not it's beautiful in its simplicity. I think it flows naturally.
Yeah.
It has some amount of wit. It makes you think. It makes you smile.
Hmm.
But it's not. It doesn't sound written. I don't know how he does that. So even how much of we read the lines and memorize them, so after a point I'm like this is something that I can make my own because I there's nothing that sounds written about it. So yeah,
Very true. Very poetic. I think very poetic and spiritual. I think his movies are for sure. But look, I think Dulquer, you've obviously worked in I think what two or now three Hindi films. And as you know, the industry is going through many serious changes, and a lot of opinions are being strongly expressed to it. Now, I
right.
love Hollywood. It's what got me into this industry in the first place, and I would like to consider myself very small part of this big industry. But given your experience and of working within that industry, do you kind of feel that maybe perhaps Bollywood is a little bit slow in adapting to change and actually gauging the audience's voice, which clearly the South is doing already, and it's succeeding at that?
I it's tricky, right? I mean, it's not. I don't think anybody wants to make films that are not connecting with the audience. We're all trying to do that, and I've always loved Hindi cinema. I've always loved how much being the biggest industry in India. They've always been probably the ones catering to the widest audience,
Yeah.
and also probably the ones uh, adapting to technologies really quick because also it is affordable to them first. Uh, First to bring in any kind of structure, first to bring in uh, whether it's corporate or bigger studio structure. So there's so many things that they've pioneered, and so many things they've got right. Though I think studio structure is probably Chennai first, but I'm saying just with the scale of that industry and the reach of that cinema, people around the world, not just Indians, like everybody consumes uh, Hindi films, and they're larger than life, songs, music. So I don't understand why they're so under attack right now when historically they've done so much. You can't just negate the entire
Mhm.
journey so far, right? Sometimes definitely every industry goes through a correction. Sometimes uh, we lose connect with our audiences, and every industry has gone through this, including Malayalam. I feel like there was a phase where me as a youngster, maybe in school or college, I couldn't connect with the films being made at that time. They were very, very verbose, a lot of just like talking, a lot of very written sounding dialogue. Culturally, it always seemed like a bit of a, uh, uh, crossover. They used to actually call them these crossover films. I don't understand because it would be always set in border towns. So it would have language that is mixed. Could have Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, and culturally it always have like. So we stopped telling like rooted stories in Malayalam,
Hmm.
and then we found ourselves. I feel like a correction happened. Certain kind of young filmmakers, started telling rooted stories, and so many of us actors could then relate to those stories. So this I'm speaking from experience in Malayalam.
Right.
So I don't think any. The sad part, I guess the problem now is with all of this media, social media, and there's just now a large sort of space for people to voice opinions or or take out whatever uh, disagreements they have with something or band together with people who disagree with something.
Hmm.
So it's sad for me to see any medium or any art form getting attacked,
Hmm.
and but I feel like everything is just transient. It's a phase where a correction is happening, and as soon as uh, maybe it's time for some of us to reflect as to what stories we're telling or whatever, but it's not permanent. Uh, I don't think any industry should be attacked or any one should be praised over the other. I believe, like you
Hmm.
said, we're all part of one giant industry now. And when
Absolutely.
everything is beautifully kind of coming together, and the borders are kind of like getting hazy, it's the time when all of us should be consuming each other's cinema and celebrating it.
Oh, definitely. And I think even, like me, like I said, Hindi cinema has been a very integral part of my life. And I think like you said, it's about hearing the voices. I think it's very important to actually gauge what the audience is saying, and when they're literally screaming it and when they're literally, you know, what shouting what they want to be heard and they're not being heard, like you can feel their frustration as well. I think it's also like a
No, but you
balance.
also have to, yeah, but you also have to give it time, right? Like, I mean, to
Yeah.
then everybody's hearing this, but now then you have to start rethinking the stories you're telling. You have to start rewriting them. You have to start. Um, Putting together once this shift is happening, and then the results of those films coming out, there's a longer gestation period because such a large industry. They make such
Mm.
big films. And also, there's definitely a backlog of films pre-COVID,
Yeah.
of stuff that was started way before. Like some of these films are 4 or 5 years in the making because of size. So I know if the viewers are upset or not connecting, they also have to give them some time, I think,
Yeah.
to now then switch on newer films and then give it that time to like make them and come out. I mean, we, like you said, like I guess Malayalam, because we're such a small industry and our turnaround times are so quick, we can always adapt quickly because
True. Yeah.
our films are between 40 and 60 days on
Yeah.
average,
Yeah.
sometimes less. So we can gauge, hey, this film worked. We can do let's work some films in that genre. But then what happens? We come together in every genre that's working. Sometimes if thrillers are working for the next 6 months, we're only making thriller, and then somebody will make like a massy entertainer, and then everybody's like, oh, that's working. So then we all make those.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
noticed that. Yeah, this whole Bhel
yeah,
Chal thing needs to change, man. Honestly, I've
yeah,
seen that happening, and it's not just. And by the way, this is not just an Indian film industry thing. I've also noticed it in Hollywood too, where like literally,
yeah,
I think Disney has literally come up with these sudden live action remakes of classic animations, and
yeah.
मतलब पता नहीं क्या चुल चढ़ी है सबको मतलब सब classics को recreate कर रही है. I'm just like,
Everybody's like,
why?
this is working. Let's jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah,
Which
literally.
is why, like for me with Sita Ramam, I was so worried because I was like, hey, nobody's watching love stories. They haven't worked in so long. But I guess that's what they want. That's what the audience weren't expecting, or they didn't know they wanted.
Yeah,
So I think any given time we should attempt any genre of cinema and just go all out and make the most amazing film, provided it's something you think is really original and keep breaking expectations and keep breaking the norm, keep going against the tide,
right.
and then in that I think we'll find great cinema.
And going back to that, to your response actually for the question about the box office numbers and how important it is for you now with your responsibilities as a producer, how are you actually able to identify your audience's demand? I know you kind of just touched on it, but I wanted to get more of your perspective on that. And how do you react to that demand accordingly as an actor?
No, I won't claim to know the secret behind this because none of us do. There's no science, there's no formula you can apply. You can only be true to the story you're telling, be true to make a great film, to give that film everything it needs. You give it the finances, you give it the talent, you give it the production design, you give it the actors, you give it all of that. You treat it like that, like your baby. You give it the best of everything. You give it the best of post and a great release date. You market it. This much I understand, and I also understand the numbers of what this film is going to cost me and how much business I can do pre-theatrical. So I know this much is my risk. Then after that, and
Mm,
then it's you go in blind with blind faith, and you hope you've made a great product and it's connecting with the audience. That's the most you can do. I don't. There's no other sort of formula or something. There's no secret behind it. But in
yeah.
trying to do
Mhm.
great quality work, I think that pays off. Your returns could be 10%, 50, 60, but that can vary based on the acceptance from the audiences.
Mhm.
But if you generally go out there to be honest and do something sincere, and you respect them and respect their intelligence and try to entertain them or move them in some way, I think that pays off. But I don't know how to hit 100 crores or 200 crores. That's not something I seek.
Right. No, of course. I mean, it's definitely you're right. It's definitely something which one cannot actually put a finger on completely, and it
Yeah,
is like the shift that we were talking about in Hindi cinema that it's going through. It's also a democratic process. It's natural. It happens very, very organically, and I think that's what life genuinely is. I think it's quite momentous we're talking and doing this interview because it's what I think. What is it? 10 years since you made your acting
yeah,
debut?
yeah.
10
This February was 10 years.
my God, I can't believe, wow, time has gone by and quite
Yeah.
ironic as well that you've got so many releases happening this year as well to mark that occasion. But look, there's definitely no denying that you are a superstar, Dulquer, and the amount of
Thank you.
love people have for you is immense. Like whenever me and my friends have sort of talk about celebrity crushes and who we all thirst upon, I think you're definitely one of the names that comes up quite often. Um,
Absolutely. Thank you.
so tell me, over these 10 years of, you evolving and emerging as a superstar, how has various life experiences, I guess, guided you in dealing with fame and the curveballs one faces with fame?
Um, I mean, I've seen it growing up. I've seen my dad tackling fame. I've seen how he kind of put us in school in Chennai just to keep us away from the spotlight, any kind of extra attention that comes our way. And even even as a kid, I used to panic when he used to get mobbed when there's huge crowds around. I always felt like something terrible is going to happen. Somebody's going to get hurt. So even now, I'm always shying away from events and things where I can draw a crowd. So I don't know. I never attribute my success to myself. I feel like it's also the films I got to do. It's also the characters I got to play. So I don't think there's. I mean, it could be just like my growing up insecurities. I've never felt like, oh, this is all my doing. In any film, there's so many departments that come together. So many co-actors who are such amazing talents, and I work alongside them. I look at them, and I feel like everybody's better than me,
Mm,
and I try to learn from everyone. So I don't think it's ever going to get to my head. Even if you call me a star or superstar, I mean, I'll politely take it, but it's not something that I can accept about myself. I love to be this actor who makes these films that reaches. If I get a lot of love, I think that's something real. When a film moves the people, when they remember a certain line or they write to me about the film, then I feel like I'm doing something right in being a part of a great story or being a part of this amazing movie that they love. And maybe I picked the right film, or maybe I'm trying to tell the right kind of stories, or maybe I'm trying to be part of the right cinema. This I understand. This love I understand, where I'm like, yes, okay, I made them happy on that day, or something about this film like moved them.
mm,
That's my joy. Like that's what I find is success. Like if people's days are changed, they find some something emotional, something joyous in a film that I've done. I think that's what I love. Other than that, um, I'm not somebody to use my fame for any personal benefit. I'm very to date. I'm really bad at cutting cues. I don't I don't like privileges. I'm happy to pay for my certain tickets and maybe join that queue. But I don't. I'm not somebody who can call influence somebody like, hey, I need to cut the queue. And,
mm.
it's something that I think is just there in me from when I was young. Never ever used my dad's name before I became an actor for anything.
Right.
And even now, I find it hard to even use that with my own whatever fame or success that I found.
Right. And it's really interesting actually, because I guess from your response, and obviously because you've seen it from a very close lens through your father, it almost seems like you have to deal with fame with utmost fragility. I mean, I know it sounds very obvious, but it does seem like you do have to treat it with fragility and humility at the same time, right?
I mean, it's not even like something that I need to consciously do. I feel like that's just how this business works, right? I mean, I had this humongous hit in Kurup, uh,
Oh yeah. Oh, I
and
love that movie.
I yeah, and immediately after that, I had a theatrical release in Hey Sanamika, which just didn't find takers because it was a love story and it was released, especially in Kerala. It came out with my dad's biggest hit, Bhishma
Mhm.
Parva, and this is such a small release, and nobody came for it. So it's like one moment with Kurup, they were calling me the next superstar, and then suddenly I come crashing, crash landing with this
Mm,
next release. So the industry and the nature of the business is as it is humbling, right? You are just if you have a hit, you're more than anything, you're just relieved that you put in all this effort to film, and all of us did, and it's paid off. it's connected. So it's more of a relief than anything else. It's not something that I would be gloating about or arrogant about, or be like, yeah, I'm a superstar now. Don't talk to me like this. Offer me this kind of film. I need a big intro. It's not something that I can never attribute to myself. I'm like, great, the film worked. Phew, like dodge that bullet. It's like that.
Yeah. It's interesting actually you say that. But I think one thing that I've got to know about you, Dulquer, over these years is that you are a very level-headed person. Like you're cool as a cucumber. Like I don't know, maybe that's just one side I've got to see of you. I've not got to see the other side of you where you're
Oh
extremely.
no, there is so much going on. There's so much. I have always been that kid who I can obsessively read negative comments, criticisms, and let that get to me, and like have a bad day, a bad night, lose sleep over it. I know about every single hater. I might know them by handles, Twitter, Insta. They might not even be aware that I read everything, but I read everything. But I also feel like I've always been a long term thinker. This is something that I would call a strength, whatever it is, whether it's my investments, whether it's anything I buy, whether it's my acting career. I'm always like, I want to be here for the long run. So
Hmm.
I get that. I'm like, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good films and bad films. I can't control everything, but I'm gonna give it everything. Like I'm gonna
Hmm.
go in with blinders on. I'm not gonna look left and right. I don't really obsess about what other actors are doing. I want to keep seeing how I can get better. But there is something where I feel like I look way ahead,
Right.
and I think that helps. So like just law of averages. I can have a bad year, but maybe the next year gets better.
Hmm.
So I'm always like, okay, I have films for the next year, so I'm good till then. So I have worked till 23. We'll worry about 24 when I get there, kind of thing.
I mean, that helps. I'm sure that really helps, just knowing the
Yeah,
fact that you have.
I think all actors, because everything is so public. Your praise and your criticism, your success and your failure, everything is so public. I think we all find these kind of systems to just stay sane, to just stay positive. Uh, it's otherwise a very it's not an industry where you ever feel fully secure. It's not like when I turn 40, I'll become the manager or something. Like there's nothing where this is guaranteed. Like any given time, I feel like we're all at every age, at every level of stardom. Every actor is constantly having to prove himself again that Friday.
Hmm.
I see my dad doing it. I see that generation of actors doing it. I see
Yeah.
me and my peers doing it across industries. When you get it right, everyone acts like you've got it all figured out. I see this so often with the so-called script selection. Like when my films do well, they're like, "Oh my god, I love DQ's script selection."
Yeah.
And then when the films fail, they're like, "Here's the worst script selection on the planet."
Yeah.
I
It
I mean
goes from
I
two
go with everything
extremes.
with the same process. I go with everything with the same gut and the same faith. But you get it right, they think the secret behind this whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Well, look, I think talking of going ahead, I mean, your next movie is Chup. And I
yeah,
think the promo was very intriguing. It paid, so it actually paid homage to Guru Dutt. But
hmm
obviously, from what I've read up and from whatever is public knowledge, the film seems to be quite distinct from what you've done in the past. I mean, you've done like a sort of grayish dark roles, I think, what in Mahanati and Guru before.
yeah.
But this seems to be a very different creature altogether. So, how do you think this movie has actually pushed you further in your caliber as well as an actor?
I mean, for whatever criticism I feel like Bollywood's going through right now, uh, when Chup was offered to me, I hadn't heard a script like that in any of the languages I've been working in.
Right.
So I was like, wow, what is this? And I was really amazed that Balki sir
Hmm.
even thought of me for this film and for this role.
Yeah.
So I think it's something really, really cool. It's really like it's a bit of a ride, the film. And so I think on the 5th of September, hopefully we'll come out with a trailer. That'll give you guys a little more of a insight into the film.
Right.
But it's something I've never done before. I think it's gonna really stand out in my filmography.
I don't think it's something that Balki has done before as well. Like he's
Yeah,
often
no,
done
yeah,
these larger than life, very Rishikesh Mukherjee style of films, and this is like
yeah.
I'd say his first endeavor into doing a Sriram Raghavan type dark film. Not to
Yeah, no,
compare,
I'd
of
say that.
course, sorry, but just to give an insight of that whole idea. Like it just seems to be very dark in essence, right? So, I mean, if you could give me a little bit of a taste of the film, that would be amazing because I think the viewers would definitely appreciate it.
Uh, like you said, I feel like it's Balki sir pushing himself into a zone he's never attempted. But I feel like he's had so much fun writing this film. Like I could sense his excitement when he was narrating it to me. I could sense his excitement throughout the filming of the movie. He just had a great time with it. He's like I don't know. I've never attempted something like this. I don't know if what they'll think of me making a film like this, but right
Mm,
now I'm just having a great time. I really want to tell the story, and I was like, yeah, it's an amazing script. It's a great idea. It's very unique. It really stands out. Uh, I mean, it's dark, but it's. I don't think it takes itself too seriously. I think there's some amount of entertainment and laughter that you'll find in its darkness. It's got this really quirky cast. It's a very tough film to promote because I can't give away anything without giving away the film. You know,
okay,
uh, but I feel like when the trailer drops, there'll be a lot more conversations that happen about what the film's about.
definitely.
Because I watched the trailer and I feel like the teaser gave you nothing, but I feel like this is definitely going to give you a little more of a glimpse of that world, and it's definitely going to be a conversation starter.
Definitely. Well, I'm certainly not going to be Chup when I see the trailer. I mean, I'm probably going to be messaging you and being like, Dulquer, I watched the trailer. Oh my God, you were not lying. So I can't wait. I cannot wait to watch that. And I think it's been so wholesome to actually have this conversation with you, Dulquer. You know, I've always aspired and wanted us to have a proper tete-a-tete, you know, about cinema, about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
craft, about the sort of paradigm shift that's happening within our industry. And I think, you know, Sita Ramam is definitely one of my favorite films this year. And I think
Thank
it's
you,
still
thank
running
you.
in cinemas. I remember it was packed houses when I went in. Me and my father, we literally barely got the last two seats on the side of
Oh,
the
okay.
the corner seats before the front row begins. So it was really, really wonderful to actually experience that and watch it with the community and people hearing their opinions, although most of it was
Yeah.
in like the South Indian language, which I wasn't able to understand, but I could hear some words here and there, which was
Okay.
lovely. But it was lovely to have this conversation with you, and I cannot wait to see more amazing work from you. And thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy.
No worries. Thank you, Anuj. Thanks for having me. And
Thank you.
the goal has always been to be a part of the best films of the year. And I feel like if you saying that about Sita Ramam just makes me the happiest. That's always been my goal. I'm like, even if I get a whole bunch of things wrong, if one of my films amongst the best of the year, then I'm doing something right. And I've been always trying to pursue that.
No, but definitely, even Kurup was fabulous last year. I mean, I loved it. In fact, I
Yeah,
loved Sobita in that movie. She was so good. Like the both of
yeah,
these in
yeah.
that
It's a
movie
great role, and
was superb. And again, there was that army sort of link as well in that.
Air Force. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there was it was quite interesting how again, like you sort of portray that in a very different light. But no, look, I can't wait to see Chup as well. So wishing you all the very best for that.
We'll speak again.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you, Anuj.